Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Alinga Sise of Urban Harvest Organic Farm. For all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel, I am so grateful. And for those who are still new, please kindly consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Click on the notification bell so that you never miss out any upload. Share this video, comment in the comment section down below, and I'll be so grateful. Today I'm super excited because we have entered our 4th week and this is our final week of brooding. Guys, I didn't know that we would reach the 4th week. Today when I believe that everything has its time. So finally the birds have finished their 3rd week and we have now started counting the last week of brooding. If we all remember the first day when we brought in the birds, the mortality which we had, how the birds, guys, it was really not easy, but I thank God that we have come this far and finally we are soon finishing up with the brooding. You can see how the birds are running up and down, very active. Like you cannot even believe that these were the chicks that we brought on the 26th of August. So today I want us to look at something very important. You know, now that I'm finishing brooding, just 1 week, you know, even I've withdrawn the heat. I told you last time we are no longer putting for them fire for the worms. I have changed the feeds from pellets to the mash. So basically things are getting easier each and every day. And I told you that the most difficult part in this project is the brooding. So during the brooding we always face a lot of mortalities. And today I want to give you some of the major causes of mortalities in poultry farming, especially inside the brooder. We all know that we had 714 baby chicks here, but we ended up losing 32 birds, and currently we have only 682 layers right inside here. And the journey has been amazing, but I have been gathering down things. In fact, I've been noting down things. They're right here, okay? Have been noting down things from day one, the causes of mortality that I want to share with you that so many of you may not be aware of. So when you start the project, because I have so many newcomers, okay? So many people who want to start the project. Others are still constructing their houses. Others have already ordered for the birds. Others have just brought in the birds. So please, others are still planning to start the project. So I want you to know some of the major causes of mortality in this project. So, but also another thing is that sometimes you will not run away from these mortalities, okay? Sometimes it is very difficult for you, the farmer, to run away from mortalities. But however, you can avoid too much mortalities in the brooder. So let us go straight to the point. The first major cause of mortality in the brooder is the cold stress, okay? Before you bring in the birds or the chicks, make sure you prepare your brooder 3 hours before bringing in the chicks. Start warming the house 3 hours before bringing in the chicks. Remember, these are chicks that do not have their mothers or the hens to give them warmth. So the only thing that you're supposed to do as a farmer, make sure that you prepare your brooder very well, very conducive for the birds. Make sure that the drinking water is ready. Avoid giving feeds within the first 3 hours. First set with the drinking water, with the drinkers. Put the source of heat. Cover up the brooder just the way you see we have covered up our brooder before you bring in the chicks. In that way, the chicks will come inside and find a very comfortable zone, okay? So when the chicks come in and the brooder is very cold, now with my case, I will always give the example of my own experience, okay? Because if I do not go through that, you may not be able to know some of these things. So my own experience is my brooder was not set and the birds came in. I didn't have enough charcoal. At night, the brooder was very cold, and early morning, remember, we lost so many birds. Actually, within the first 4 days, we lost so many. But so that is also another major cause of mortality in the brooder. When the brooder is very cold, the birds get so stressed. Sometimes they will pile in one corner, and the ones that are down, they end up getting suffocated and they die. So make sure that there's enough source of heat inside your brooder. It is warm enough. I've given you the temperature, the recommended temperatures that is supposed to be there. Please make sure you have the thermometer, hang it up there to keep on regulating the heat inside the brooder. Now, the second thing that is bringing a lot of mortalities inside our brooders is overheating. Some of you, when they tell you that the brooder should be hot, oh my God, you make it extremely hot in a way that your baby chicks will be panting. They will be so dehydrated. They will even fail to feed, because when they are feeling so hot, they can even fail to feed, and later it will lead to death. Please, let us try to follow the temperature, the standard temperature, the standard temperatures that is supposed to be inside the brooder. We talked about it. Please, it is very, very important. That is why I recommend, please, let us always have the thermometer hang inside your brooder to at least know how to regulate the heat inside the brooder. And then also, the third thing that brings a lot of mortality is poor ventilation. Some of you, when they tell you that the brooder should be hot, you make sure that you cover up everything in a way that there's even no fresh air coming inside the brooder. Now, like if we give my own example, you can see I have covered up everything. In the beginning, remember, we had not covered up the other upper parts, okay? But that also brought a lot of coldness inside. I ended up covering the upper part, but if you can see, there are some openings up there. The other side, we have the opening. And then at the door, this side, what I always do, now like, that part is always open, okay? Now that the birds are putting on feathers, that upper part is always open. And then before that, when the birds were even still very young, I was opening this door at least for 10 minutes. Every day I open it so that some fresh air comes in and the bad one always get out. So when there is no ventilation inside the brooder, it is also not good, because sometimes you will find that the birds will suffocate. They will have respiratory diseases. The brooder, some of you, your brooder can end up smelling because you pour too much water inside the brooder. Those are some of the things that is causing a lot of distress among the birds, causing a lot of death inside the brooder. So please, let us take note of it. And then another thing is overcrowding. I remember from the beginning, most of you were telling me that the brooder is too large. But guys, look at the brooder that was large in the beginning. Imagine if we had reduced this brooder. See how now they are full inside here. These birds would be so overcrowded. So please, let us always make sure that the brooder is not too crowded, because if it is too crowded, they will also fight for fresh air. They will be suffocated. They will keep piling in one corner. At the end of it all, there will be a lot of mortalities inside the brooder. And then also another thing that I noticed is the poor litter management. I have talked about this from the beginning, that our brooder should not be wet. The litter should not be smelling. Now, I have a problem today. In this point where you see these chicks, okay? I had hung there the drinker, and now after when the water got done, I removed and noticed that here, the water had poured there. That is really not good. Make sure that water is not pouring inside the brooder, because if the water keeps pouring inside the brooder and it keeps on, it gets so moldy, then later it causes infections, it causes coccidiosis, which is not good for these birds. Remember, when these birds keep on getting sick when they're young like this, trust me, they will end up not laying at 18 weeks or 16 weeks. Their production will not be as expected. So for us to get best production or egg laying, we must make sure that we take care of these birds very, very well. Another thing that I noticed down was poor quality feed. Some of you go for very cheap feeds, okay? That is not good. Some of you, but the feeds keeps like you don't store the feeds well, so they end up caking. they end up getting a lot of mold. Now, like I have some, I think around 3 kilograms of pellets out there, which water poured on it. Some of you would just give it to the birds like that. It is really not good to give these birds feeds which is contaminated, which has caked, which has got molds in them. They will end up getting sick, and that can lead to mortalities inside the brooder. Make sure that if you're going to mix feeds, like the way I've mixed the feeds now, I made sure that I mixed the right ingredients that is needed. I have mixed, if you see the maize that I mixed was very clean maize, the soya was very good, sunflower cake was smelling good, everything was perfect. So that is the only way you can avoid mortality inside the brooder, because if the feeds are not okay, if it is of poor quality, it do not have enough proteins, do not have enough vitamins, at the end of it all, it will lead to deficiency in this. But so that will lead to mortalities inside the brooder. And then also another thing that I noted down during this time when I was brooding is the dehydration and starvation of these birds. Some of you do not give these birds enough drinking water. You do not give these birds enough feeds. You come inside the brooder, the feeders are empty, the farmer is not yet there, or the farmer is busy somewhere, all the workers are not even bothered. That is really not good. And then there are these cases where we have weaker birds. Now, like I told you in my previous videos, that I have these chicks that have not put on weight very well, but I'm glad that they are keeping, like they're disappearing. You come inside the brooder here, you don't see them anymore, okay? But there are those ones that are weak naturally, so they cannot reach the feeds or the feeders. Like for me, I've hung my feeders up, okay? Some of you will end up hanging the feeder very high in a way that a bird which is short will not reach the feeds, will not reach the drinking water. So that is why you see my drinkers are a bit low, the feeders are a bit low. That will lead to starvation in these chicks, and some of them will end up dying, especially those ones that are already weak, those ones which are already sick. So let us really make sure that we give these birds enough feeds and enough drinking water. Another thing that I noted down is diseases. You find that some of you end up having lots of diseases disturbing these birds inside the brooder, simply because maybe the litter is not clean. Like I told you, that like this water that poured here, I need to remove it. If we leave it there, it can easily cause coccidiosis inside the brooder here. And then also some of you who are not vaccinating the birds, are not even following the biosecurity measures, you'll end up getting Newcastle in the brooder. That also will lead to a lot of mortality. Some of you end up getting salmonella, and that also leads to mortality. So please make sure that these birds don't contract any type of disease inside the brooder, because that will lead to mortality inside the brooder. And then we also have poor chick qualities. I talked about this before, okay? Sometimes you will end up getting chicks that are of poor quality. So make sure that when you're ordering for your chicks, try to look for authentic suppliers. I'm not going to mention names of suppliers here, but please try to do your background check and get the authentic suppliers. Try to use those suppliers that so many farmers out there have used, okay? Because if you use just any supplier out there that you do not know their history, you will end up getting chicks that are of poor quality, that are very weak, okay? And trust me, you'll get a lot of mortalities, okay? Sometimes also the problems come from the hatcheries. Other hatcheries, they don't take care of them well, okay? So the chicks come there when they have their own diseases. So that will disturb you as a beginner or as a farmer. You will end up losing so many chicks inside the brooder. And then another thing is stress, especially during transportation. I think this one I also talked about it some time back. During transportation, birds also get stressed, especially if they come from far, okay? Now, like ours came from TZ or Tanzania, these birds get also stressed. So please, stress is one major cause of mortality inside the brooder. Please make sure that when you're setting up your brooder, don't set it up in a noisy place. I've told you before that I have a church next to my wall and there's always a lot of noise. That is not good for the chicks. Okay, I thank God that these birds are now already used to the noise, but honestly, it is really not so good for them, okay? If you're not giving them enough herbal remedies, or for those who are using the modern medicine, try to give them the vitamins to at least give them the appetite and the urge to drink enough water and to feed well. Because that appetite, that stress can make birds not to feed, can make them not to drink, and later you can easily have a lot of mortalities inside the brooder. Now, last but not least is accidents. Guys, I want us really to listen carefully. There are so many accidents that you can get inside the brooder that will end up causing mortality unexpectedly. Just like we have one baby chick out that got broken during vaccination of Gomboro. That is also another mortality, because I don't know whether that bird is going to survive. And then several times we come here, I think I've shown you this several times. I come here and find when birds are piled inside the feeders. Okay, these ones that have hung like this with this string, it is always hard for them to go inside. But there is those ones that I've just put. You can see I've put the bricks on top to avoid. I could come in the morning and find over 10 chicks inside there. That can lead to mortality inside the brooder. And then inside the brooder, always you have to come either barefooted, or you come with stockings, or you get some sandals to wear, not boots. You can easily step on these chicks and they die. Another thing that causes accident is the fire. Like, you remember I was putting the pots there, okay? If you leave those pots open, you will find so many chicks that have roasted inside. In fact, the day when we are removing these birds from the brooder here, that is probably next week. That will be next week on Wednesday or Thursday, okay? We will have to count these birds, because you never know, some of them might have roasted themselves inside the pots. So those are some of the accidents that can happen inside the brooder. Even just mere putting those drinkers there, sometimes you find that you have squeezed the bird under it and it has died. So basically, so many things can cause mortalities inside the brooder. That is why, okay, another thing that I don't want to forget is the corners, okay? You see, in every corner I have put the bricks. I remember we put it together last time. In every corner we put the bricks. Actually, not only inside the brooder here, even in the main chicken house, make sure there are no corners, because when something happens like this, they all run to the corners. So those ones that were already there, they pile on top of them, they suffocate and die. So please, there are so many things that can bring mortalities inside the brooder that we have to be very careful and vigilant about. That is why sometimes if you, let's say you want 700 birds, you will end up bringing like 750 chicks. So that you will put in mind that if others die, I will end up remaining with my 700 birds. That is the only trick that so many other farmers do. But some people are so lucky in a way that they can only lose like one bird in the brooder. Now, like my previous birds, I lost only one, of which a sack of coffee has sat on it. But otherwise, all those birds were going to come out of the brooder safe and sound. So some of you are so lucky that when you're doing brooding, you end up not losing any bird. But for most farmers, at least there is 1 or 2 or 3 mortalities inside the brooder. And for my case this time, I had so many. 32 was a big number. Honestly, it was a big number. But still, we are going to count the birds the day that we are putting them outside to confirm if others didn't fall inside the fire. So, those are some of the things, the major causes of mortality that we farmers face inside the brooder. Others you cannot avoid, but most of them you can avoid. There are only 2 that you can't avoid. Stress, basically from transportation, and then maybe the poor chick qualities, especially when the problem is with the hatcheries. But the rest, you can avoid them. So please, let us be so vigilant if we bring in these birds. Let us prepare early enough. Let us be ready to face some of these challenges and to deal with them accordingly. We are still giving them the beetroots mixed with ginger, and I told you that we are going to do that at least for 5 consecutive days. So for today, that is all I had for you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for always coming back. Thank you so much for loving me. But if you're still new, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Click on the notification bell so that you never miss out any upload. Share this video, comment in the comment section down below, and I'll be so grateful. See you next time. I love you all. Bye-bye.